Heart disease is the number one killer of people globally. It's the number one killer of people in India, especially. And it's the number one killer of men. It is the number one killer of women, too. Women globally are undertreated, underrecognized.
Are symptoms different for women?
They can be more atypical. Like I said, they can just feel very fatigued, or they can also, of course, have the classical symptoms, but women and diabetics tend to have more. If you have a new symptom from here to here, and this is not something that you have experienced before, and it's persisting for like 2 to 3 minutes, and you're on the right demographic, please assume the worst, take an aspirin, get to the nearest hospital.
You mentioned the prevalence of heart disease in younger population, younger adults, even as young as 35, 40, dying of heart attacks. And a lot of people associate that with the vaccine that we got during COVID. Is there a connection?
Okay, I don't have enough fingers to count the number of times I've been asked this question, but here's the thing, right?
What are the worst foods that we consume?
Sugar, saturated fats, anything processed. So keep it real, keep it local, keep it, I would say, if you can, go for organic.
If someone's in their 20s or 30s and they haven't thought about their heart health yet, even though we should be, what's one simple thing they can start doing every day?
Can I make it 2? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay.
Dr. Arun, for anyone who doesn't know you yet and the work that you do, how would you introduce yourself beyond just the medical title? Who is Dr. Arun, the cardiologist, and what led you to explore the connection between food, lifestyle, and heart health?
First, thanks for having me on the podcast. And
Thank you for being here.
so I'm an interventional cardiologist. So basically, I do cardiac procedures, but in a minimally invasive manner. My own personal journey really kind of gave me the impetus to kind of talk about lifestyle, right? There was a time where I was just kind of curious, and during my training, when I was in Ohio at Cleveland Clinic, I happened to meet Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who was one of the pioneers, I would say, in the plant-based cardiac space, right? And that was kind of an eye opener. Here we are, like, putting in stents and learning how to treat heart disease, and then someone like is out there talking about how food can be your medicine. It's like, and that I think really made me look into it a little bit more, kind of do a deep dive. So obviously there's a lot of research out there, et cetera, et cetera. And so I kind of thought about, okay, it's important that we treat disease, but it's also important that we give people the tools so that they can avoid getting there in the first place. And if, push comes to shove, if there is a problem, then yeah, we are always there. But treating shouldn't be the default approach. Prevention should be the default approach. So that really made me very passionate about the whole, I would say plant-based lifestyle changes that you can take so that you avoid seeing me.
Heart disease is the number one killer globally, and we rarely hear people talk about food as the first line of defense. How much of heart disease, in your opinion, is actually preventable through food? And what are the most harmful dietary practices that we still follow today that harm our heart health?
So let me kind of set this question in perspective, right? Heart disease is the number one killer of people globally. It's the number one killer of people in India, especially. And it's the number one killer of men. And a lot of people assume, like, I'm a woman, I'm fine, I have no issues, like, I got to worry about cancer, not heart disease. But it is the number one killer of women, too, including in India. The thing about India, and the reason your question assumes particular relevance, is that Indians tend to get heart disease at a much younger age, almost like 5 to 10 years younger than the Western population.
Really?
Yeah. And it's we are like, oh yeah, we are like, we are a vegetarian society, or like at least a good percentage of Indians are, and it's like this just doesn't add up. The part of the reason is because there is a genetic predisposition, but more importantly, I think what we have done over the last, I would say, few decades, um, you know, comfort foods. There's definitely more animal-based protein fats in our diet. There's a lot of processed stuff that we take. Our sugar intake has gone up. The whole westernization, we were not built for it, right? Like, I mean, westernization of diet. So this is super duper important. Now, if you look at attributable risk, it's kind of hard to put a number because I would say lifestyle per se, and diet is a very important component of lifestyle. So in that, I would let's touch upon multiple things. We're going to talk about diet. We're going to talk about exercise. We're going to talk about, stress, sleep. Definitely, I mean, if someone's smoking or vaping, don't, because that's a big one. And also about our society overall not having a great, how do I say this politely? Um, we don't see our doctors unless there's a problem. No, actually, not me. Like, don't see specialists. But we used to have this thing called family physicians once upon a time that
Yeah.
knew your history or like, like they probably knew you as a kid, know your medical history or family's history. That's dead in the water. So now you just see people go, it's sporadic care, it's fragmented. So I would say this ecosystem contributes a lot to our heart disease, and I would say overall that's probably 50% plus. And in that 50%, diet would be a significant chunk of I would say, the attributable risk there.
If you could simplify the process for me, consuming animal based foods, once that goes into my body, what does it actually do that leads to heart disease?
So, two aspects, right? One would be, like we said about the packaging, right? Usually it comes with a lot of saturated fat, and that is essentially cholesterol. Plant based fats don't have cholesterol, animal based does. And cholesterol is basically I mean, it's the majority of the stuff that forms plaque, which leads to heart attack, right? That's the blockage, the cholesterol deposit in the blood vessels. That's number one. The other one is that it triggers inflammation. So if you want to keep it really simple, I would just say high saturated fats, cholesterol, and it's an inflammation trigger.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Understood. What are the early signs of heart diseases? Earlier symptoms to look out for?
Of heart disease or heart attack?
Can you address both separately?
Sure. So heart disease. So let's again, in layman's term, like when we say heart disease, what most people think about is coronary artery disease or atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. This is unfortunately like a disease that is very, very prevalent in our country. What does this mean, right? Every organ needs blood. That's how it gets oxygen. And the heart, in a way, takes care of itself before it takes care of everyone else. I think, as most of us should. So, what it does is once the blood comes out of the heart, there are two major vessels typically called the coronaries. It's called the right coronary artery and the left main. These supply the heart itself. Okay, so any blockage that forms here is what is referred to as coronary artery disease. In most people's mind, when they talk heart disease, this is what they're referring to. Although there's like a plethora of diseases, right? You can have heart failure due to other reasons. You can have rhythm problems. You can have structural problems. You can have valve problems. There's a whole array of diseases that people can have just with regards to the heart and other vascular territories. But let's just focus on coronary artery disease or ASCVD. So if you think about this, the earliest symptoms are basically because the heart's not getting enough blood. A heart attack is when this happens suddenly. So a 20 or a 30% plaque can rupture. It's kind of like a volcano. It ruptures, and then platelets and other, cells just come there, fibrin. It tries to like kind of seal the deal, but then inadvertently it ends up clogging the vessel itself. This is what leads to a heart. This is a heart attack, basically, because a part of the heart is suddenly not getting enough blood. What are the symptoms of a heart attack? This varies, okay? But the classic symptoms, and we've all seen this in movies, right? Someone just clutches their chest and they just fall or whatever. The falling part is because of cardiac arrest, but a lot of people, it's just pain, crushing pain. The textbook description is it's like an elephant is sitting on your chest or something. So it's really bad, bad pain, usually over the center of the chest. But the important point, and I want to really emphasize this, is that most people haven't read the textbook. So that was a joke. So what I mean is that most people don't get these typical symptoms. Yeah, if you have these typical symptoms, you bloody well are probably having a heart attack, so pay attention. But if you don't, right, there are other symptoms. What are they? You could feel very winded, like I just can't breathe, I'm not getting enough air, you know, I'm finding it hard to breathe. You could feel extremely fatigued. Again, it could be fatigue due to a lot of reasons, but this could be one of the symptoms of a heart attack. It could be any other kind of pain. It could be like a toothache. It could be, just a sharp stabbing pain. It could be anything from your belly button to your jaw. And this is what I tell my patients, and I've said this on camera before. If you have a new symptom, right, from here to here, and this is not something that you have experienced before, and it's persisting for like 2 to 3 minutes, and you're on the right demographic, please assume the worst, take an aspirin, get to the nearest hospital, have your friend drive or take an ambulance if you have access to one here. Um, so what do I mean by the right demographic? I would say anybody pretty much 20 and over if you're a guy, and I'd say 30 and over if you're a woman. Um, and the reason is because you don't want to miss it, right? Here, a false negative has just dramatic consequences, so you don't want to miss it. And even if it's not a heart attack, it could be something else. It could be a clot in your lungs, it could be pneumonia, it could be anything else. So just have it addressed and don't put it away. So that's important. Now, in general, for heart disease, the kind of symptoms, if this plaque gradually builds up, a lot of people also complain about this. You're 50 and you're like, yeah, I get short of, I'm like, and I hear this from patients all the time. I'm like, I have no symptoms. I'm like, really? But they often come to me with an angiogram. And I'm like, why do you get the angiogram? Oh, because my doctor ordered a treadmill. So why do they order a treadmill? It's like, oh, because whatever. It's odd. They just had a screening. They had a master health checkup and they just get it or some reason. But then it's very interesting when you talk to them and you ask them, do you have any symptoms? The answer is no. And there, there are also patients whose kids swear, like, my dad's really active. Like, tell me, what do you mean by active? Oh, he goes to work. He works, and or my mom does work in the kitchen. So what we call ADLs, activities of daily living, requires very little effort, like, from your cardiovascular standpoint. So most people just get by, or they assume that it's part of aging. I just, I don't climb upstairs. Why? I don't feel good. No, elaborate. I get a little tired, so I just take. That's why you
Breathlessness.
have an elevator. Your body's telling you not to do it. I'm like, not really. It's and people attribute that to aging,
Hmm.
but oftentimes it's because they are not getting enough blood to the heart. Now, the problem is if it's undiagnosed, number one, you're not treating it aggressively. Number two, you will tend to ignore symptoms, or if you have a heart attack or worse, a cardiac arrest, it'd be like, oh, he was fine until yesterday, and then boom, just happened. The thing is, it's been giving you signs, and you just didn't pay attention.
So there are symptoms way before it actually
In
leads to a heart
most
attack.
instances, there are. The key is many times it does strike, you know, out of nowhere, or so people assume. Even for heart attacks, there have been studies that have shown that up to a month before, they have this, like, it, it's kind of like premonition or whatever you want to call it. It's like people do have, I mean, it really is not. It's just that they have subtle symptoms that you just think it's
Yeah.
okay, and you just keep going on. Um, Diabetics and women tend
Mm-hmm.
to have more atypical symptoms. So that's something that is very, very important. Women globally are undertreated, underrecognized. I mean, it's like one other thing where I think actually gender equality should be there. They're underrepresented in clinical trials. They often present later, and even when they present to the hospital, and this is true even in the U.S., they don't get as much angioplasty as men do, etc. And especially in our country, I think sometimes women are like, no, I got to take care of this. I got to do this. I'm going to send my kids here and then I'm going to do this. I think people put themselves on the back burner more often than they should. So
Are symptoms different for women?
they can be more atypical. Like I said, they can just feel very fatigued,
Right.
or they can just say, I just feel winded.
Hmm.
They can also, of course, have the classical symptoms, but women and diabetics tend to have more atypical symptoms.
Got it. Okay. How much of this is genetic and how much of this is based on lifestyle? Because both my grandparents passed away from a heart attack.
So, well, you have age on your side and you have gender on your side as long as you're premenopausal, right? Like typically, although some do have it. If you have diabetes, like all bets are off, right? If you have it. So, having a strong family history certainly puts you at a higher risk, but it's not a death sentence. It doesn't mean you have to worry every day thinking, oh my God, am I going to get a heart attack? But it's a red flag. It means you definitely have to pay attention and you probably have to live more responsibly than, let's say, someone who has like, who's grandparents all made it to 100.
I've been
Um,
vegan 9 years, so safer
so
side.
good for you. And the point is, um, there is a genetic component and there's no taking away from it, and that's, I would say, almost up to 50% of it is genetic. So if you, when you talk to a doctor, they always ask you, hey, have any of your first degree relatives
Yeah.
have had a heart attack before the age of, like, 55 if it's a man, 65 if it's a woman. In fact, I would set the bar even lower in India. uh, but the point is, your lifestyle can not change your genes, but it certainly can influence which genes are expressed and which are not, the epigenetics. So that you have control over, right? So I would say, if you have a family history, pay more attention, but it's not all doom and gloom. It's okay.
What are the worst foods that we consume for heart health?
Uh, that's a tough one. So I would say sugar, saturated fats, which are high, I mean, which is typically found a lot in animal-based foods, like of any sort for that matter, um, and anything processed. So keep it real, keep it local, keep it, I would say, if you can, go for organic.
Why is the cardiologist amplifying or supporting a plant-based diet?
I'm like the person that should most support it. Truthfully, I'm not like, um, because trust me, like, we see people get robbed of, like, um, many years. I mean, India is, it's especially heartbreaking. We see a lot of people that get heart attack in the prime of their youth. Like, I mean, I mean, I'm sure you hear it in the news all the time, right? I mean, we always see it in the news when it happens to a celebrity, but the reality is it happens to everybody. It just
Yeah.
makes news when it happens to a celebrity, right? But it affects younger people a lot more in our country. And, whether it's a man or a woman, in, let's say, in their 20s, 30s, 40s, it has a ripple effect. It's heart wrenching. And if there is a simple way that you can adopt so that you reduce your chances significantly, shouldn't you? And, I feel morally obligated to tell this to people. I'm like, you really should do everything you can to prevent getting to, like, having heart disease in the first place. I mean, it's like the old saying, right? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The only thing we've heard growing up is that red meat is bad for you, that red meat causes heart diseases, but people still consume white meat. White meat is still considered healthy, lean protein. You need it to build muscle. Is it the same for all sort of animal products, or are particular animal products worse than others?
So let me break this down into two parts, okay? The first thing is, clearly red meat is bad for you. So no two ways about it. I'm not telling you that red meat is okay. So what you grew up hearing was correct.
Hmm.
But the fact remains that increasingly, like, everyone wants to look like, I mean, we are in Mumbai, but, like, like, I don't want to name the celebrity, but you want to be ripped. You want to be, like, really whatever, like, have your six pack, etc., etc. And protein is important. Do not get me wrong. And I think most Indians are undernourished when it comes to getting enough protein. But the quality of protein matters a lot. All protein is not created equal. And the issue with even going for the lean meat, etc. So I think people know, right? Oh yeah, that has high fat, especially saturated fat. So they know how to avoid that, and that includes ghee, etc. But there is this myth that, okay, lean protein is good and, like, animal protein is complete and plant protein is not, etc. Which, those terms are not even, I mean, it's an antiquated term. It should not even be used anymore, number one. And what is more important than the, just the protein content is the packaging. And animal proteins are packaged very different when compared to plant-based proteins. And what do I mean by this? So when you take a lot of animal protein, there's you have heme, promotes a lot of inflammation. You have carnitine, you have TMAO. All of these are, pro-oxidant. They increase inflammation. They increase the process of atherosclerosis. Now, on the other hand, when you are predominantly, let's say, plant-based protein sources, or that's your go-to, um, these come usually with a lot of good stuff. Like, you get a lot of fiber. You get, yeah, lentils, like, for gram to gram might not have as much punch compared to just pure red meat, but it's packaged really well. You get a lot of good stuff with it. And you get good sterols. You get a lot of beneficial stuff that goes along with plant-based proteins that I think makes it really complete and a better way to go.
Hmm. You mentioned ghee and you also mentioned inflammation. But a lot of Indians believe that ghee actually helps with inflammation and ghee is good for your health. What's the connection between ghee and heart health?
So this is okay. I'm sure this is going to be kind of controversial, but like because in Ayurveda, right, like ghee is promoted and it's considered beneficial, as you said, for a lot of stuff. I mean, there are people that think it's like, yeah, my joints need
Yeah.
lubrication. Let me take more ghee. I don't know. It doesn't actually work like that. But anyways, the point is this: like it or not, it is a saturated fat. Now, it might be a little bit better. And there are some studies that have actually kind of supported that than let's say butter, etc. But overall, especially if you're worried about heart health, make no bones about it, it is clearly a very high saturated fat source of thing. Like there's not much else there. So if you want to do it for taste, then be my guest. But don't add ghee thinking, oh yeah, this is going to keep my heart healthy. It doesn't.
What is it doing to my heart? What is excessive consumption of ghee?
Excess fat, especially saturated fat, where does it go, right? Any calories. I mean, in fact, sugar gets converted to fat and gets stored too. But saturated fat, I mean, it's basically the stuff that clogs your arteries. And on top of that, a lot, like I said, a lot of the animal-based foods, and this includes ghee. Unfortunately, it does promote inflammation in the blood vessels. And this we are increasingly realizing. Actually, I would say almost over the last 2 decades that inflammation is like the buzzword when it comes to heart disease. It's about reducing inflammation as much as you can. And I know there's also all these, and it's very trending right now, like to say, hey, I know my body and my body needs this particular thing. And like, look, here's the bottom line fact. Sometimes there are fad diets and they're very good. It's really good for marketing. See, if I go tell people, hey, eat real food, just make it unprocessed. It's got to be mostly plant based. Don't fry stuff. Don't take sugar. I mean, essentially, if you follow this, I mean, I could put the whole booming food, whatever nutrition industry to like. I mean, it's like if you did this, the overall prevalence of heart disease will go down significantly. But this is not sexy. This doesn't people want to hear us say, okay, now I get, I should have this much of amaranth in the morning and I need to like actually have 2 spoons of whatever. And it just, I feel better because, someone's like planning it out for
Yeah, it's
me and
become a
it's just,
prescription,
yeah.
you know,
And
flaxseed
it's,
with your
it's,
smoothie and collagen with
no,
your
flaxseed is
matcha.
great. Don't get me wrong, but like but these good things are good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not like it's good for you and not for me, and vice versa.
Hmm. Slightly off topic, doc, but you mentioned the prevalence of heart disease in younger population,
Right.
younger adults, even people my age. I've seen people as young as 35, 40 dying of heart attacks, having significant heart issues, even,
Right.
this early on. And a lot of people associate that with the vaccine that we got during COVID. Is there a connection between the
Oh, but
vaccination and
yeah.
increase in
I
heart diseases?
Okay. I don't have enough fingers to count the number of times I've been asked this question, but here's the thing, right? Um, Now, did whatever we did for COVID, did that kind of contribute? When we talk about what leads to what, it's not a simple A leads to B leads to C, etc. Many times, especially in these complex diseases, it's about attributable risk. And it's like, I drink. I'm actually going to digress and tell you a little story because it's like if I drink and drive, if I'm always sleep deprived, and I text and drive, and let's say the speed limit is 60 kilometers per hour and I go at 65 and I have an accident, like, yeah, the excess speed might have contributed to it, but a lot of the other ones are much bigger players. The reason I'm saying this is that, number one, I think most of us got infected with COVID. COVID was definitely inflammatory kind of a condition. Initially, thought people thought it just affected the lungs. People also got vaccinated,
Yeah.
obviously, right? And some of the vaccines were correlated specifically with myocarditis, etc., which is inflammation of the heart muscle itself. Now, can I be dogmatic and tell you there was absolutely no subtle increase in risk? No. But I mean, we have much bigger fish to fry, no pun intended. Like literally, we are the diabetic capital of the world. Most of us are sedentary. If we decide to work out, we want hacks there too, right? I mean, I want like I want to lose weight and get my six pack in like whatever, 2 months if I could. We unfortunately have started vaping, thinking that's better than smoking, and now gender equality plays there too. I mean, I see women smoke, and when I grew up in India, like a very long time ago, it's like it was taboo to even ask a woman if she smoked. But now it's like, oh, sure, you can smoke, I can smoke too, kind of deal. So we have so many players. I don't think COVID. You can't blame this on COVID vaccine. I think that would be very unjust.
Because there's a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of fear mongering
And
happening around the COVID vaccine,
and even
increase
if
in
it
heart
did,
diseases.
what could you do, right? I mean, it is what it is. And I would say, just looking at probability and looking at whatever literature is out there, the chance that COVID vaccine led to more heart attacks as compared to COVID itself, which I'm sure almost every one of us got, it's minuscule. Like so, I don't, COVID was definitely a bigger risk factor than the COVID vaccine.
So you did mention that inflammation is a key driver of heart disease. Are there any particular foods that cause the highest amount of inflammation? Or what causes inflammation to begin with?
This is a so when we talk about inflammation, right? I mean, I think we've touched upon and we can keep this really simple,
Yeah.
right? So we can the question can be worded in multiple ways, right? What foods lead to increased risk of heart disease? Are basically the same foods that lead to increased risk of diabetes, are basically the same foods that trigger inflammation, that are also possibly carcinogenic. So it's actually really easy. Like like I said, all the stuff that is not like anything that's super processed. And in fact, that's one thing, a word of caution, even amongst people that want to adopt a vegan diet or a plant based diet for whatever reason, the ultra processed foods are not good. So if you think, okay, I'm going to be vegan, I'm not going to get heart disease, if you think about it, if I drink Diet Coke, French fries, and like, just mock meats all the time, that's plant based, but that's super processed, full of saturated fats, and definitely not good for you. So, but I mean, I would say most animal foods does trigger inflammation. Anything that you fry, I mean, loses all its nutrient value. Just, I mean, that's just junk calories. Sugar triggers inflammation. That's a big one. And again, I don't even want to go there because I know you just talked to a nutritionist, but I don't know how much you guys covered here, but people have all these ideas about sugar. Like, doc, I don't take sugar. I take brown sugar. I take on I take jaggery. I take or something else or whatever is the
Artificial
latest trending
sweetener.
thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, artificial sweeteners are definitely bad. So I mean, truthfully, the reason fruits are good and fruit juice is bad is because one causes an insulin spike right away, and the other one just, again, it's in the packaging. It comes with a lot of fiber. It's not taxing your system as much. Your pancreas is not like saying, oh my God, I got to pump out all this insulin. So it's all about eating, once again, real food, like eat home cooked stuff. I think the convenience foods are also really bad because look, anyone, and again, I'm nothing against businesses, they're out there because we want food that's readily available, but it is really not meant for daily consumption, right? We should, I think most of the guys these days learn, they know how to cook, but like, I mean, I've been to the US and I was like, oh my God, okay, how do I do this, right? So it was kind of, but it's fun. You learn. It's actually a lot of fun cooking. So guys, learn to cook. Um, so I think homemade food, real food, minimally processed. Um, and one simple thing is like your plate in general has to be very colorful. So it's like add a
Eating the
lot of stuff.
rainbow.
Yeah, eating the rainbow, right? Exactly. Kale, if you don't get kale, and okay, spinach, whatever local sources, just make sure you wash it really well. But yeah, I mean, I would say really eat a lot of good stuff. I would include a handful of nuts, especially like say walnuts. Eat more legumes. I think I'm hungry. I'm like thinking food. Okay. So yeah, eat a lot of good stuff.
I do want to touch upon these fad diets, doctor, especially keto. It's said that it's bad for heart health. Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
Why is that?
And I mean, for we kind of danced around it, but I'll kind of just get to it, right? So keto diet is basically where you essentially want to keep your body in ketosis, and one of the ways you do it is by it's the no carb, high fat diet. In fact, the I would say the OG of this was the Atkins diet, right? Was promoted heavily in the U.S. and by again by I would say Dr. Atkins, of course. And the unfortunate thing is that he actually ended up with heart disease and ended up dying. This definitely promotes atherosclerosis. I mean, there's irrefutable data. It's not even a debate anymore. You can achieve ketosis in multiple other ways, including intermittent fasting or time restricted eating or whatever fancy way you want to call it. So, because that does put you in ketosis, and that's definitely, I would say, doesn't hurt, possibly helps heart disease stuff or preventing heart disease stuff. Um, Fat diets work great in general when you want short term gains. Like, I mean, I could go on a juice cleanse. It's not sustainable. I could go on, I'm going to just not do this particular thing, right? And these are all very good if someone wants to shock their system. I'm like, 100 kilos plus, I just want to lose weight and I don't know and I feel horrible. And someone's like telling me, okay, I'm going to send you this packaged food for the next month. Yeah, because I'm like so like disillusioned with my life, I will take anything. So it really works there. It will help you lose weight. Atkins diet can make you lose weight, but it's definitely not doing your heart any favors.
Any lifestyle changes that either worsen your heart health or also lifestyle changes that improve your heart health?
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess I just have to answer one, right?
I
Don't
guess
do
so.
the do what I just say or don't do what I say. Do the good stuff, not the bad stuff. So we touched upon diet, I think. Um, we discussed a fair bit about animal-based foods. So I'd say keep it real, unprocessed, minimize sugars. Sugars are also really, really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, any kind of sugar. That's the diet part.
Hmm.
Number two is, and I'm personally trying to do this with the travel. Like, don't eat late at night. Try to finish your last meal by like 7 p.m. I'm not following it because of travel, but I'm trying to.
Be a gen,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Um, and get enough sleep. This is another challenge.
Hmm.
I would say of all the lifestyle ones, this is like the one that I find hardest to because of travel, being like a interventional cardiologist, etc. But try to get the same hours of sleep every night.
Every day.
And if you sleep at 2 a.m. and wake up at 10 a.m., you still get 8 hours, but it's not as good for the body. Like, stick to the
Yeah.
sun, right? Try to get to bed early, wake up early. That's always better. If you can, of course. I'm not saying everyone can do it. If you're a night shift worker, I'm sorry, it wreaks havoc on your system. But even then, try to stick to the system, like to the same schedule. Um, Exercise. And what do I mean by this? You don't all have to have six packs. I mean, of course, it's great if you do, but no, I'm kidding. No, it. The point is, I think resistance training is important,
Hmm.
especially for women and men over 40, because muscle mass loss is real. And this definitely hurts us overall. And it's not just about the heart. We have to be alive and mobile for us
Yeah.
to do everything. Get aerobic activity, at least 30 to 40 minutes, I'd say 3 to 4 times in a week,
Hmm.
along with with strength training. Work on your flexibility, posture, etc., because these are important, especially if, as you're getting older, you're hitting the wrong side of 50s, etc.
Hmm.
Stress, I can't emphasize enough. Everybody says, oh, I'm stressed. My job is very stressful. Guys, here's the thing, everyone's job is stressful, and I'm not trying to take away, I mean, of course, if you're fighting hard to like like put 2 meals on the like on your plate, then yes, it is stressful, but a lot of it is also about how we react to the stress. While we
Hmm.
can't change the environment that much, we can certainly change how we react to it. So figure out good ways to manage stress. Now, whether it's dancing, yoga, meditation, I'm not the world's expert on this, but figure out what floats your boat, work on stress. And Definitely no smoking or vaping. Alcohol used to be considered like, I mean, especially I'd say red wine is being, oh, that's heart healthy. The thing though, it's a slippery slope. Number one, number two, it's not good for your brain. Overall, it increases cancer, takes away your brain cells. So I'd say I'd give that a thumbs down.
It's
Um,
no alcohol.
yeah, pretty much. Be a teetotaler. I'm sorry, I'm boring. Um,
This is
And
sustainability, so it's fine.
yeah, yes, it's good. So we've talked about stress, sleep, food, exercise, um, and last but not least, right, social connections. I think this is also a very, very underemphasized thing. Um, does not mean you have a lot of followers or friends on Facebook or Insta or whatever else. That might be fun, but like the point is have real meaningful connections, um, because life is stressful, and you should have those friends or family that you can go and like be yourself and like have talks, unwind, and that has been shown to be critically important in determining just not cardiac health but longevity overall. So yeah.
I love that. I think number one factor for happiness as well, long-term relationships,
Yep.
deep connections, deep friendships. So we hear
So
this all the time that we consume about a credit card's worth of microplastics every week. Microplastics have been found in semen, breast milk, in feces, pretty much everywhere, right? And there's also endocrine disruptors, not just from plastic, but chemicals, like a lot
right.
of beauty products that have chemicals. Is there a connection between microplastics and heart health?
So just like plaque can build up in the blood vessel supply to the heart, actually it can build up in the blood vessel supply to the brain. So you have these four blood vessels that take blood to the brain, and without the brain you're nothing, right? And two of the major vessels are called the carotids, and people can have blockage there. And if it any blockage is referred to as stenosis, so when like it can lead to stroke, etc. So carotid stenosis is usually bad. It can cause other symptoms too. So when it exceeds a particular percentage, etc., you have to take care of it, and one of the ways you take care of it is by taking it out. It's what is referred to as carotid endarterectomy. So they go in and just take out the clot or the throm the build up there. What they found was when they took this, they did a study. Who had microplastics and who did not in that excised specimen? And what they found was those that had microplastics in follow up, right? They followed them over the next several years, and they found that they had a significantly higher percentage of getting heart attacks, strokes, and overall just not doing well. So, yeah, unfortunately, I mean, once upon a time we thought plastics are just hurting the fish and all those other animals that we never have to deal with, etc. But the reality is they're really bad for us, and it's actually hurting our generation. Yeah, in multiple ways, including the heart and the
How do we
brain.
reduce our microplastic exposure?
Be more sustainable. No, no, but on a serious note, though, like, I mean, each one of us, like, I think we should talk to policymakers. We personally, like, should try and avoid using plastics as much as we can.
So even
I,
drinking from plastic
drinking,
bottles.
yeah, like, I think plastic bottles is one simple thing. I mean, you really, really should just carry a bottle. I mean, and then it's so easy to just fill it up with water. And, and what they have found, by the way, is drinking water from plastic bottles is one of the biggest contributors to microplastics to us, like, so definitely that's easy, and it will help your health.
If someone's in their 20s or 30s and they haven't thought about their heart health yet, even though we should be, what's one simple thing they can start doing every day?
Can I make it two? Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. Work on your lifestyle, so we talked about everything, and get a primary care doctor.
Someone only has 20 minutes a day to move. What's the most efficient thing they can do?
Yeah, I know that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. I think it's about taking personal responsibility and knowing your numbers. So I'll just say it's not a test, but it's about knowing your numbers. What do I mean by this? Any person over the age of 20 should know their cholesterol level, should know if they have high blood pressure, and if they have diabetes. Because these are three diseases that are asymptomatic. You don't know it. Like, you can't tell what your blood pressure is. You can't tell what your cholesterol is or if you have diabetes. Yes, there are symptoms of diabetes, but many times they happen way too late. So take ownership of your health. Know if you have these, because if you do, you really have to change your lifestyle ASAP and talk to your doctor, work on what you need to do to do course correction so that you don't have to see me.
If someone only has 20 minutes a day to move, what's the most efficient thing they can do?
There's informal exercise, right? So one thing is, like, if you are a super busy individual, what I would say is use those 20 minutes for any kind of exercise that you like, where I mean, I'd say aerobic activity if you're in your 20s. Um, if you're in your late 30s to 40s, etc., still I would say aerobic activity on most days, but with some strength training. But here's the thing, the rest of the time, like, make sure if you have a sedentary job, get up and move. Studies have clearly shown even like 2 to 3 minutes of like just like jumping or whatever, walking briskly every hour actually correlates significantly, especially in women, with reduced cardiovascular mortality. Park your car further away. Take the stairs. So
Mm.
yeah, you can still be more like it's just not formal exercise. You got to really move. We
Okay.
were designed to move. Yeah.
Got it. Are these tech hypes, smartwatches, wearable tracking equipments, are these just tech hype or are they a great way to measure your heart health? Because I'm wearing an Aura ring.
Good for you. And so I mean I got a smartwatch too. So but like so here's the thing, right? Um, I think it's a nice thing to have, right? You certainly get more data. Now who gets the data? I don't know. But like, I think knowledge is power.
Okay.
Because many times we overestimate like how much we move or we underestimate how much we eat, etc. So if there's a way for us to keep tab, I think it's good.
It's okay.
You The least thing that you can, I mean, the one thing that I think almost any smart device does is it tells you how many steps you've taken. I think
Yeah.
that's a good way to go, right? Of course, the fancy ones, you can look at your heart rate variability. There's just so
Yeah,
much
the
information you
way
can
I
get out of it, right?
sleep,
Yeah.
my
Your
readiness
sleep, yeah.
score, body temperature, track my cycle, pretty much
I,
everything.
I think truthfully, I think and technology is like evolving so fast that I think it will become an essential component of an integrated healthcare system. I mean, in the foreseeable future.
Okay. Coming from an
Okay.
interventional cardiologist, what's the most convincing thing you could tell to someone from a heart health perspective, apart from everything else that you've said so far, to switch to a plant-based diet?
You have more control than you think you do, and the one thing that you can control very easily every time and with no side effects, right, is what you put in your mouth. So, I mean, it's risk free. So I would say, if nothing else, do it because you care about yourself.
Okay. We've spoken about heart disease quite a bit, but how do you prevent heartbreaks?
Oh my God. Okay, is this like a real question or
Yeah,
are
just
you
a
like,
real
say,
question.
no? Okay, it's like, what am I supposed to answer? No, look, everyone's going to have heartbreaks. That's a real thing. You can't prevent it. I think it's part of growing up, and it's about learning to deal with heartbreaks. And if you never have had your heart broken, actually, it sucks to be you because everyone heartbreaks at some point or not. The key is knowing and getting the tools, learning from it. Hey, is there any takeaways from there? Use it as a lesson rather than, dwell in like, oh my God, this happened to me, life sucks. Hey, it's all good. It's an experience. Go through it.
So
It's a
can't come
lesson.
to a cardiologist for that.
I'm sorry.
Can't come to a cardiologist for that.
There is a broken heart syndrome for which people do come to the cardiologist, but that's a real medical thing. Like the heart literally gives out. It's called the broken heart
Oh
syndrome.
God,
Yeah.
no idea.
We'll talk about that later. Next time.
We've been meaning to do this for a while, and I'm really grateful we got to do this. So thank you so much for spending the time, for taking out the time, and for doing this with me. Thank you.
Thank you for having me over. And again, honestly, this was like chatting with a friend. So really enjoyed
That's
it.
what it felt
And
like. So
thanks to the
much
team and
fun.
everyone. Like, no, this was,
I know how
yeah,
you keep your heart healthy. A lot of humor.
that
So
actually works.
I can
Yeah.
figure that.
Life is
Yeah.
stressful enough. Let's
Thank you. Thank you, doctor.